This video is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into Braves on Deck. Thank you for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. And coming out of this series last night with the Braves, Atlanta has some problems. If you missed it last night, it was announced first that Max Fried would hit the 15-day injured list with nerve irritation in his elbow. That was already not good. You flash forward to the game, Ozzie Albies would collide with Michael Ciani as Ciani was heading to second base. He'd run into Albies' hand, which results with Albies being left with a left wrist fracture that will keep him out, estimated for 8 weeks. Could be a little shorter, could be longer. We don't really know. So you come out of that game, injuries are piling up, no doubt about that. They already were this year, and then you add this. Full disclosure, I was at this game, and I was also in post-game with Snit, and he was asked about Albies, and very rarely do you see Brian Snitker really get frustrated, but you could tell he was frustrated. This is before x-rays were done. This is before we knew anything conclusive, but as Snit put it, quote, "It's not good." We know that, and another thing he said was, look, depth only gets you so far. That leads to this morning as the Braves have signed a minor league deal with Whit Merrifield. Merrifield was waived by the Phillies, of all people, back on July 12th. He's a three-time All-Star in his career. He has had a rough first half, 199 batting average, 3 homers, 11 RBIs. He was an All-Star last season. He can provide you versatility not only in the infield, but he can also play outfield. In fact, primarily this year for the Phillies, he played outfield, but he did have 14 games as second base. The Braves will likely give him a chance to play every day at second base until Albies returns. As banged up as the Braves are, I thought this move made a lot of sense. If they don't do more moves, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I definitely think there's more to come. And look, having Whit Merrifield to replace Ozzie Albies is a smart move. It's cost effective. The upside is there. You know what he can do when he's playing at his best. We've also seen what he can do when he's playing at his worst. But at the end of the day, he's defensively perfectly fine. Offensively, anything he gives you is great. So I like the move of Whit Merrifield. But really, that's not what I want to talk about today. Because I don't think it's going to be the biggest news the Braves make this week. I want to talk about these injuries that are piling up because the Braves certainly have more than their fair share on the year. And we all know that already. It started with Spencer Strider, then it was Ronald Acuna, and it's really just been downhill from there. But when you look at this lineup and you look at how many players have spent substantial time on the IL, a substantial, which is over 2 weeks, right? 15-day IL. Olsen, Ozuna, Darno, Arcia, and Duvall are the only players who have not spent substantial time on the injured list. That's not including pitchers. That is only the lineup. You only have 5 players that are currently on the lineup that have not spent stints on the injured list. For pitchers, we can talk about that too. In the rotation, Spencer Strider, we already know, we already mentioned it. He's out for 2024. Max Fried, again, now out for the short term, hopefully. We hope it's only a 15-day IL stint. A.J. Smith-Shawver has also been out with an oblique. So you've run into 3 stints on the IL there, one of which is out for the season in Spencer Strider, just in your rotation. In your bullpen, you've also ran into problems. You've had three guys in the pen that have been out for stints this year. Pierce Johnson was out earlier this year. Tyler Matzik is currently on the 60-day injured list. A.J. Minter just returned from the injured list. There's no word on Matzik's return yet. We don't know what he's looking like. So you add all that up, and it just feels like the Braves are bleeding from all angles. And that's kind of what Snit was talking about last night in postgame. It's like, look, we prepared for this. We prepared to have depth in case someone got hurt. But when you lose a Cy Young contender in Spencer Strider, another Cy Young contender in Max Fried, at least for the short term, your reigning 2024 National League MVP, And not to mention Ozzie Albies, Sean Murphy, Michael Harris is now out. Sean Murphy has spent time on the injured list. Kelenic has spent time on the injured list. Austin Riley has spent time on the injured list. You know, there's not a lot you can do. No matter how good Marcell Ozuna is doing this year, it's not going to add up to a lot of success when your lineup is so depleted, when your rotation is now depleted, when your bullpen is missing pieces. And really, when you add all this up, the one thing that's going to come up is, all right, so what are the Braves going to do at the deadline?
Are you ready to save big on a new GMC?
At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, you can own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $14,500 off. The roomy and comfortable GMC Terrains are up to $8,250 off. And the GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7, discounted up to $8,000 off. At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika,
Get ready to smile.
You could argue, we've argued every angle of this. Beginning of the year, I told you we needed a starting pitcher. Why? Because Spencer Strider got hurt. And I told you I think we need depth because it's nice to have the guys we have, but if one of them gets hurt, we're going to be up a creek. And sure enough, Max Fried is now hurt. That shows you what could happen at the start of the postseason. That's what scares me when it comes to starting pitching. So to me, I still think we need starting pitching. And hopefully Max Fried comes back and the rotation is somewhat back to normal, but it will never be what was planned. If you look at what was planned for the rotation, this is pretty interesting, right? You would have had Strider, Fried, Sale, Morton, and Lopez as your starting rotation if everyone were healthy. And with the year that Lopez is having, that would have competed with anybody. That would have been a great rotation. And the lineup is no different. You look at the lineup that was supposed to be what we have at the time right now. You would have led off, obviously, with Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Ozuna. That, for the most part, is the same. Obviously, we're missing Albies now. Michael Harris, Murphy, Darno, Arcia, Kelenic, and Duvall. I mean, there's very few guys on that list that are even playing right now. And when you look at that lineup, especially with Ronald Acuna at the top of it, at full strength, that lineup, even with the down years that Olson and Riley have had, that lineup would have looked a lot more like 2023 than what the 2024 Braves have done. All due respect to everybody that's been in the lineup, it's not their fault, you could argue, because of everything that they've ran into. So with that, I think with the situation you fall in now, we've already discussed that we think the Braves need an outfielder for offense. I think you could argue now that they need outfield and an infielder, even with Whit Merrifield there. I think you could still argue that that could improve. So right now, as we just said, you could argue we need starting pitching. You could argue we need outfield. You could argue we need infield. I think you could argue we need bullpen too, with what I just mentioned about all these guys that have been on the injured list. And the bullpen arguably has been one of our stronger parts of the team. It's still somewhat depleted with the absence of Matzik. I think you could still add something there. So the trade deadline is shaping up to be very interesting. No doubt about that. And a lot of people are talking about all these injuries. It's been a meme over the past 24 hours. It's been all over Twitter. I mean, look, I was in the press box yesterday and everybody in the media room was talking like, man, I mean, the Braves just cannot catch a break. So the question is the season over now that Max Fried is out for 2 weeks, maybe, and Ozzie Albies is out for 8 weeks? Is the season over? Well, last I checked, it's only July 22nd, which means there is a little over 2 months to play and only a little over a week until the trade deadline. So if the Braves can stay afloat over the next week, I think that they're still going to be active at the deadline. They've already shown that as of right now, they are not going to be sellers because they wouldn't have went and signed Whit Merrifield. They would have called up, and they did, they would have called up Nacho, and that would have been it. So at the end of the day, when I look at where we're at right now, the Braves are still buyers at the deadline. Make no mistake. They're not sellers. They're not walking away.
Are you ready to save big on a new Chevrolet?
make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. The powerful Chevy Silverados are up to $13,750 off. And the big Chevy Silverado 2500 HTs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
And maybe that's not the right move, right? A lot of teams would look at where we are right now and say, all right, we are so injured, we are so banged up, let's just conserve with what we have and prepare for next year. A lot of teams are going to have to make that decision this week. The Braves arguably should be in that category with as banged up as they are, but I don't think they will because, again, I don't think they would have went and signed Whit Merrifield if that was the case. With teams like the White Sox, the Angels, and the Marlins all likely being fire sellers, I would be shocked if the Braves were not only active at the deadline, but I'd be shocked if they didn't do more like this Whit Merrifield move prior to the deadline. And look, in 2021, Alex Anthopoulos did his best work at the trade deadline. In 2024, it's shaping up for him to have to do it again. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And a lot of people are wondering, and you're going to ask, well, Tyler, what do you want to do at the deadline? We've done some videos on it. I did one this past week talking about the White Sox and how I think they could be a target, and I think that even more so now. Luis Robert Jr. intrigues me. He's had a good year when he's been healthy. Eric Fetty intrigues me. Garrett Crochet even intrigues me a little bit, although I think Eric Fetty is more likely. And you could even argue with the situation the Braves are in, they may settle for a Tommy Pham right now, although I would lean more Luis Robert. Beyond that, there's other guys out there. We mentioned starting pitching. That's become more of a priority as of this week. And although Max Fried is only supposed to be out for 2 weeks, this may make the Braves a little bit more active and frankly, more desperate at the trade deadline to go out and get somebody. There's plenty of guys out there. I mentioned Eric Fetty. I mentioned Garrett Crochet with the White Sox. You also have to mention Skubal from the Tigers, who has had a solid year. Everybody thinks he's going to be moved. I would imagine that AA is at least working the phones on that one. When you're talking about outfield, we mentioned Luis Robert. A lot of people have brought up Brent Rooker. Regardless of the defense, I think the Braves would settle for having offense right now. And also, if you're going to trade with the A's, you might as well add to your bullpen and try to get Mason Miller, right? So there's a lot of ways this could go. I mentioned the Angels. I would love to get Kevin Pillar back with the year he's had. I think his veteran presence at a time like this could be very beneficial. And I'm curious to see if the Braves will make that happen. But all in all, I mean, anytime you're going to search, trade deadline possibilities into Google, you're going to get about 150 different ideas. There's a million ways to skin a cat. All I'm saying is, I think for sure the Braves are still buyers. They are not sellers, at least for the time being. It could change. I mean, all of a sudden, if Austin Riley was to get some kind of injury, then, I think you may change your tone. I don't know. But as of right now, they're still buyers. And look, we only have a week until the deadline. The Braves could be a completely different team after the deadline. That's what happened in 21, right? At the deadline in 21, and I can't say this enough, you signed not only the World Series MVP, not only the NLCS MVP, but you also got bullpen help in Richard Rodriguez. You got Adam Duvall from the Marlins, who hit a grand slam in the World Series. All I'm saying is the team in 2021 looked vastly different in the second half versus the first. And I think that very well could be the case this season. We've seen it happen before. And, look, crazier things have happened. I've seen crazier. I know the Phillies have a good lead that seems to not be budging. But come the second half, we'll see where the Braves are. We'll see what this team is. And frankly, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about the trade deadline. For those of you that have not followed the channel before, every year we do a trade deadline watch along. We will do the same this year. So July 30th, if you don't have anyone to spend it with us. We are doing a trade deadline live broadcast. We're going to live react to everything going on, not only with the Braves, but also pretty much all across baseball. We're going to talk about it all. So if you would be here, that would be great. We'd love to have you. And if you have not already subscribed, please do that. Like the video if you have not already as well. And please do hit the bell for notifications so that you know everything we do, every video we post, every live stream we're on. Please be a part of the On Deck community. We would love to have you. That's going to wrap it up here right now. And again, with the Braves, it is what it is. It's a tough pill to swallow with how many injuries we've accumulated, how many starters we're missing. But let's just hope that Alex Anthopoulos gets to the trade deadline and makes some things happen. For now, though, that's going to wrap it up here. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.